They wiped out my entire college fund behind my back just so my sister could find herself in Paris while I scrubbed floors for tips. I'm Rachel. And if you think you're safe from this story, stay sharp. The sun was punching through the blinds that morning, too loud for a quiet betrayal. I'd just gotten off my shift at the diner. Greasy apron, aching feet, and 100 dreams shoved behind the counter. Mom called a family meeting, which meant Dad would nod, Emily would cry, and I'd sit on the floor like furniture. I still remember the way she sniffled on cue. I just need space to heal. Maybe Paris. Or Spain. She wore my hoodie like it was hers. Cried into her latte like she was drowning. Mom rubbed her back. Sweetheart, we'll figure it out. Right, Bill? Dad exhaled, that tired accountant sigh that meant he'd already lost the argument. Then they looked at me. Not gently. Not apologetically. We've decided to use your fund, honey. Just until we're stable. No eye contact. Just silence. As if my dreams were negotiable. I stood up. Slowly. Like every bone had to think twice. I worked 3 jobs for that account. Emily blinked. Mom said, she's your sister. Be generous. And Dad cowered that he is whispered, it's not like you were going this year. That line split something inside me. I walked to the kitchen. Opened the cabinet. Pulled out the black binder where we kept everything important. Passwords. Statements. Emergency contacts. And quietly, while they sat in the other room, praising Emily's courage, I logged in. Changed what I needed. Locked it all down. No yelling. No drama. Just a silent goodbye to the version of me that begged for crumbs. I left the binder on the table. A yellow sticky note on top. Use your money next time. Then I walked out. Into the cold. No coat. No plan. Just rage stitched into my spine. They had no idea what I was about to become. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was scared, because I was awake for the first time. I stayed at a 24-hour diner downtown. Same one I used to serve at. Ordered black coffee I couldn't afford. Watched people come and go like they had purpose. I had none. Until 3:12 a.m. That's when I remembered the file. Not the binder in the kitchen, the one on Dad's old desktop. The tax folders. The offshore ones. The don't touch this drive. I knew the password. Emily's birthday. Of course. I walked 2 miles back home. Hoodie up. Air biting. Snuck in through the garage like a thief in my own life. Dad always left his office unlocked. And there it was, the manila envelope that didn't belong. Thick. Sloppy. Stuffed with receipts and wires. They weren't broke. Not even close. They just didn't want to spend their money on me. I took photos. Every page. Sent them to a new email I created right there on his PC. Then I wiped the browser history and walked back out. 3 days later, I got my first response. A man named Jack. Said he helped people like me restructure pain into power. I ignored it. Then I got another. This one from a woman named Elise. She said, you don't need to confront them. Just control the storm from behind it. I didn't know what that meant. But I wanted to. So I replied, teach me. That's how it began. The quiet unraveling. While Emily posted croissants on Instagram with sad poetry, I was building something beneath them. A silence so cold it could burn. I moved into a shared apartment with 2 girls I didn't know. Did freelance admin gigs. Copywriting. Anything. Kept my head down. Saved every cent. And every night I opened those files again. Line by line. Until I knew every shell company they owned. Every lie they told the IRS. The house they were so desperate to protect? It was built on fraud. And I'd just found the match. 3 weeks later, I wore a navy blazer I bought for $6 at a thrift store and walked into an office with no sign on the door. Elise was taller than I expected. Black heels, blood-red nails, and eyes that had clearly seen too much. She didn't ask why I came. She just said, you're not the first daughter they tried to erase. But you might be the first who doesn't disappear. She handed me a folder. Inside, a map. Not of places, but people. A compliance officer who used to work with my dad. A former investor who claimed Bill and Linda had finessed him out of $80,000. And a financial regulator, who just so happened to be Elise's cousin. She said, "Your family hides behind paper. Let's bleed them with it." I don't know why I wasn't scared. Maybe because they took everything already. Or maybe because Elise believed in me more than my parents ever did. We didn't start with the big moves. We started small. An anonymous tip to the IRS. Another to the State Fraud Division. We knew they wouldn't act immediately, bureaucracy never does. But the clock had started ticking. Then came the leaks. I created a fake LinkedIn profile. Posed as a concerned CPA. Posted subtle breadcrumbs. Unreported assets are the real inheritance some families leave behind. The post went viral in small circles. Tax forums. Accountant Reddit threads. Enough noise that someone would connect the dots. Back home, Mom posted a family selfie with Emily captioned, "My brave girl, healing in Paris while her sister finds herself." I laughed so hard I choked. They had no idea I'd already frozen 2 of their accounts under an anonymous compliance review. Or that a red flag had been added to their mortgage. Or that Emily's healing trip was now under review for misuse of educational funds. Elise said it best. "We don't knock on their door, Rachel. We remove it. Then watch what happens when the wind hits." I used to think revenge had to be loud. But this was better. This was surgical. And I hadn't even touched the trust fund yet. I never meant to take everything. But once you start pulling threads, you realize the whole house is stitched together with lies. Emily returned from Paris like a princess without a crown. The cards weren't working. The rent hadn't cleared. And Mom? She was calling the bank every hour like the fraud was on them. I watched it all unfold from a burner account. The bank's automated reply. "Due to irregular activity, your accounts have been temporarily frozen pending investigation." And then the real storm hit. A letter from the IRS. Another from the State Board. And a third from the Education Grant Office, the one they'd forged documents for so Emily could play student in Europe. I didn't send those directly. But I knew who would. Elise called it domino placement. You don't tip them yourself, you just build the right table. Dad started unraveling first. His firm let him go quietly, of course. Can't have a scandal with compliance risk leading your accounts department. Mom kept hosting Sunday brunch like everything was normal. The last one was brutal. No champagne. No avocado toast. Just silence and lukewarm apologies they gave each other with their eyes. I walked past their house that evening. Not to gloat. Just to see it one last time before the final move. It looked smaller somehow. Like truth had shrunk it. Like lies couldn't hold it up anymore. I got a text from Elise at 7:43 p.m. "It's time." I opened the trust fund file. The one Mom swore didn't exist anymore. Used for family emergencies, she said. Turns out the emergency was Emily's lip fillers and a timeshare in Florida. One form. One digital signature. One reroute to a charitable education fund, under my name. By midnight, the account was empty. Legally transferred. Permanently inaccessible to them. The next morning, they woke up to zero. No balance. No trust. No safety net. Just a printed notice taped to their front door. Assets transferred due to misrepresentation of beneficiary status. Further inquiries may result in legal exposure. Mom fainted. Emily screamed. Dad just sat down on the porch and buried his face in his hands. For the first time in years, I felt tall. They tried calling me over 40 times that week. Blocked numbers. Unknown callers. Even a fake message pretending to be a law firm, poorly written, full of spelling errors. Nice try, Mom. I didn't answer any of them. But I listened to every voicemail. It's wild how quickly your ungrateful turns into, "Please call us." Emily's was my favorite. "Rach, this is all a misunderstanding. You're taking it too far. Like, we're family." I nearly threw my phone across the room. "Family?" She watched them bleed me dry and asked for seconds. Dad's voice cracked in his message. "You don't understand the damage you've done. You're hurting people." "No, Dad. I'm just holding a mirror. You broke yourselves." Meanwhile, I was living in a shoebox apartment with peeling wallpaper and sleeping better than I ever had. My new job paid only $19 an hour, but it was honest. Every dollar I earned didn't carry a lie. I bought myself a cheap secondhand desk, set it by the window, and wrote a letter. Not to send, just to release. I wrote, to the version of me who kept asking for love from people allergic to it, she's gone now. I signed it with my real name. For the first time in years, it felt like mine again. Then I got the news. The trust fund redirection triggered a deeper audit. Not just on my parents, on all of their donors. Turns out Dad had been shifting untaxed funds through a fake nonprofit for 7 years. The nonprofit didn't even have a phone number. They froze the Florida property, seized the Paris apartment lease. Even the family car got repossessed in broad daylight. Emily recorded it and posted a crying video online. My life is falling apart and my own sister did this to me. I didn't respond. But I watched every comment. And for once, no one took her side. One wrote, maybe don't fund luxury with someone else's future. Another said, you don't get to cry after stealing someone's wings. I screenshotted them. Saved them in a folder named Proof I'm Not Crazy. I used to beg for people to believe me. Now they were telling my story for me. They showed up at my apartment. No warning. Just loud knocks at 6:17 a.m., the kind that make your heart sit up before you do. I didn't answer. I watched from the peephole. Mom in a wrinkled trench coat. Dad, shoulders collapsed like someone had finally told the truth about him. Emily stayed in the car, face buried in her phone. They didn't come to apologize. They came to bargain. A note slid under my door. Let's talk. We can fix this. We'll give back what we can. Please, Rachel. I stared at the words. Each one soaked in desperation, but still avoiding accountability. Still pretending this was a misunderstanding, not a lifetime of decisions that always left me last. I didn't open the door. I just slid my own note back under. There's nothing left to fix. Not for you. Not with me. 10 minutes later, I heard their car leave. Slow. Defeated. It should have felt like closure. But it didn't. Not yet. Because even if their world was collapsing, they still had one thing left, their name. And I knew them too well, they'd try to salvage it. That's when I sent the final file. Not to the authorities. Not to Elise. To a journalist. A woman named Dana who specialized in uncovering white-collar fraud that starts at the dinner table. The story went live 3 days later. Headline: The Golden Family Who Buried Their Daughter's Future and Got Burned by the Paper Trail. It hit harder than I expected. Shared over 200,000 times. Featured on a financial ethics podcast. One commentator called it a masterclass in silent retaliation. I sat in my apartment, headphones on, listening as strangers dissected my life like it was a Netflix script. But this wasn't fiction. This was the cost of being the forgotten child turned reckoner. Emily deactivated her accounts. Mom's charity board dropped her. Dad's old firm released a statement. We condemn all unethical practices tied to former staff. And me? I finally smiled. Not because they were ruined, but because I no longer was. I got an invitation in the mail. Cream-colored envelope. Gold cursive. You are cordially invited to Emily's engagement celebration. I laughed so hard I dropped my tea. After everything, she was still performing. Still trying to wrap her mess in ribbons and filtered photos. Still pretending the world didn't just watch her life fall apart. The venue was some rented garden space in upstate New York. Not Paris. Not private villas. Just enough glam to feel expensive, but cheap enough to show the cracks. I RSVP'd yes. Under a fake name. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I wanted closure. One last look at the people who tried to bury me. I walked in wearing a black dress I stitched myself from thrift store scraps. It fit like armor. The music was too loud. The smiles too wide. And then I saw her, Emily. She spotted me, but couldn't react. Not in front of all those strangers. She froze, champagne in hand. I walked right past her, calm as snowfall. Mom was near the fountain, laughing like her world hadn't shattered. Until she saw me. Her face tightened. Eyes darted like a trapped animal. And Dad, standing near the dessert table, actually turned away. Couldn't even look at me. I leaned close enough to whisper. I'm not here to ruin anything. You already did that. Then I placed a small gift box on the table. Inside, copies of every document, every email, every transaction. Labeled, in case you ever forget. I didn't stay for the cake. Didn't need to. The silence that followed me out was sweeter. That night, I took a bus home. Put on music. Opened my window. The wind felt different now, like it didn't have to fight so hard to reach me. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling and thought. They took my voice. So I wrote it back into existence. They took my future. So I carved a new one from their ruin. And as for love? I'd give it, just never beg for it again. A year later, I stood in a quiet classroom, sunlight spilling through tall windows. On the chalkboard behind me, financial literacy for first-gen students. 18 girls sat in front of me, notebooks open, eyes wide. Some of them reminded me of who I used to be. Worried. Small. Waiting for someone to tell them they mattered. I didn't tell them my whole story. Just enough. Sometimes the people closest to you will spend your future like it belongs to them, I said. But money isn't just numbers, it's freedom. And no one gets to steal that from you. They listened. Not because I sounded smart, but because I sounded real. And because the silence between my words held pain they could recognize. After class, one girl stayed behind. She looked maybe 19. Quiet. She said, "Miss Rachel, did your family ever say sorry?" I smiled gently. No. But I stopped needing them to. Later that night, I walked home through the city, a thermos in one hand, my key in the other. My apartment was still small. Still creaked in the winter. But it was mine, paid for with clean money and steady hands. I checked the mail. Just one envelope this time. No return address. Inside was a letter. From Dad. "We lost the house. Your mother's not doing well. Emily won't speak to us. I don't know what we did to deserve this, but I hope someday you can forgive us." No apology. Just regret that their kingdom fell apart. I didn't respond. Not because I hated them, I just didn't owe them anything anymore. Forgiveness isn't an invitation. It's a release. I stood by the window, watching as the city flickered with strangers' stories. Mine had finally found its ending. No noise. No revenge parties. Just peace. And the kind of power that doesn't have to scream. Because when they emptied that account, they thought they were taking my future. But all they really did was fund the woman who would never need them again.